ACC SEC Challenge continues. We have Texas welcoming in the Virginia Cavaliers. It's a Texas team that went 2-1 in Maui. Now, the first win didn't really move the needle much. They got a dominant win over Chaminade, which, yeah, tip your cap to the OGs of Maui, but yeah, not going to do a ton in the eyes of the public. However, got a gritty, maybe gritty's the wrong word to use, a high octane win over NC State, 102-97, where I believe they made 16 threes in that one. They could not miss. And J-Man, I don't know about you, but when I'm looking at this Texas team, I don't know if that says more about this Texas offense or more about the NC State defense. I think State's defense has been pretty shaky, but 102 against a power conference opponent, nothing to shake your head at, especially at a neutral court. And they welcome in a Virginia team who's been really good. I would say under the radar good, mainly
Yeah,
because they lost that game in gosh, we broke it down like in West Virginia against Butler. And aside from that, only one other power conference game they played, and it was Northwestern, a back and forth battle in that same showcase that they won. But Virginia will match any team's physicality. They dominate the offensive glass. They're the number one team per offensive rebounding rate in the country right now. Got a lot of shooters, a lot of a deep guard and wing rotation, plus just a really good front court led by their two international imports. Should be a good contest for Texas. But what are you looking forward to in this matchup?
yeah. I mean, I'm looking forward to the guard play, kind of the forward play, I guess, with D
Mhm.
Ritter being the guy for Virginia going against Texas. Who, look, I watched this Texas defense do a really good job of shutting down Cam Boozer in the first half, the opening night of college basketball, and
Mhm.
held him to 0 points in the first half. I'm very curious to see what Sean Miller does to try and slow down D Ritter with him just being dominant for Virginia so far, 18 points a game, and being also all around player for them. So that's honestly it sounds boring, but I after seeing Sean Miller against Cam Boozer, I want to see what Sean Miller does against D Ritter and see how he can really slow down Virginia.
Well, to even further that point, like that game against NC State, they held Darion Williams to 3 for 10 from the field. 10
Yeah.
points as a whole for a guy who's averaging close to 20 this year. And I think there might be something to that in terms of like how Texas, they have great size in the front court. They have Matas Vukatitis, who's been a little up and down, I would say mainly from a defensive standpoint, but he's strung together some consecutive games with double figures. I mean, he's a true 7 footer, just massive size, great hands. And I think at least I still want to buy the potential of him defensively, at least as a space eater. I don't think he's the most fleet of foot, but he can at least get in the way around the rim. Of course, they have Dalen Swain, kind of matchup nightmare on the offensive side, but good size, 6'8", 225, to where like they can throw that. They have Cam Heidi on the wings to where they can throw length at you and take you out of rhythm if you are one of those bucket getting foremen. And in order for Texas to have any shot in this game, it starts with like replicating that effort that they had against Williams, that they had against Boozer on DeRitter. Yeah, DeRitter's been incredible this year.
Yeah, they've been or their
Well,
defensive prowess against the number one options have been really good with Duke and Darion Williams to where I trust Sean Miller's defense game plan against D Ritter. And it's
mhm.
all three guys are different offensive players, what they do offensively. But look, this Texas team 6-2 and the 1 point loss to Arizona State, obviously, but if they lost that by one, like we could be talking about a 7-1 Texas team with their only loss being against Duke, a game that they were
Mhm.
leading at halftime. Like I like what have seen so far with this Texas team, and I just think that this is a good test for them against a very good Virginia team. But I'm curious to know what your thoughts are with like who you want to look at in terms of matchups, like not 1v1 necessarily, but this player against that player is like the reason the game flips.
Yeah, so I think it will come down to like Jordan Pope, him versus whether you're looking at Dallin Hall or Chance Mallory, whoever, or Malik Thomas, whoever you would consider as the primary ball handler there. Pope had an awesome outing against NC State where he knocked down 7 threes, and he's had a tendency to do that throughout his career where he'll have some quiet outings and then just explode. I mean, there was a game last year where he put up 42 against New Orleans and made eight of them. I think Texas fans like have their critique of him has been he kind of has to have stuff scripted for him. Like he's not much of a create your own shot, create separation kind of guy. Like that's where you see maybe some of the athletic limitations. However, it's tough to argue with like his 3 point volume, even though it's a little bit volatile. But I even mentioned him specifically just for this one going up against Chance Mallory, Dallin Hall, Malik Thomas, just because like as good as this Virginia team has been from a front court perspective, as much as they control the glass, as much as they block shots with Johan Grunlow and Tez de Ritter, the guard play has been really explosive offensively. They haven't really provided much resistance, though. I go back to that Northwestern game for Virginia where Jaden Reed just had his way with them. Like he finished that contest with 25 points, 5 assists, got to the free throw line 14 times. And I think that's where Virginia can be a little bit susceptible, even if, you might not buy Jordan Pope as like this great lead ball handler who can get into the teeth of the defense. I think based on how Virginia has struggled on that end so far, like that to me is one that I'm looking out for sure. How does he fare going against this guard group? Can he get to his mid-range shot and knock down jumpers over the length of guys like DeRitter and Grunlow with how they're going to be playing up on them and trying to make life difficult on these guards?
Yeah, I mean, I like Jordan Pope because he was 3 of 10 against Duke, but he had 3 tough ones against Duke, and he agrees with me in the background. But he's Jordan Pope is just he is a guy that can hit tough shots, and this is a matchup where Texas might have to rely on that for him to hit tough
Mm-hmm.
shots, and so I'm curious to know how that looks. And Virginia, Virginia's has guys too with Malik Thomas that can go get a bucket, and then look. I think Jakari White. This could be a Jakari White game for me. Like if they don't have anything going, here comes a bench piece energizer body that is shifty, that can go get a bucket and impact winning in positive ways outside of scoring. I, I don't know. Like he did nothing. Jakari White, I have stock in him, but
Uh,
obviously he had nothing against Northwestern. But he comes off the bench and he's had 4 games in double figures. And so maybe this is a game where it's the 5th game for Jakari White to come off the bench and have a double figure game for Virginia. And that could be a reason why they beat Texas.
Yeah, that's a good point. It's like when you look at this Virginia team where they do have an advantage, I would say they just have a bunch of options. Like it could be Jakari White, it could be Thomas. I mean, Chance Mallory has been my favorite guard out of this group. I don't know if he's necessarily been the best. He has a case for that. I mean, Malik Thomas, he's shown off like his that high scoring, like how he's wired to just be a high scorer and get you a bucket in a variety of ways. Like he was awesome in that game against Butler. I kind of think Chance Mallory has been the most consistent though. Like he's
Yeah.
coming off of a stat line against Queens where he put up 11, 8 boards and 4 assists. Like that type of production. And he's just plays it's way bigger than his listed 5'10" height. Like
Yeah.
you're not going to mistake him for a lockdown defender necessarily, but he at least will get up into you and force some steals. I'm curious to see how he responds to the challenge of this one with Pope coming in after such a hot shooting performance. If he takes that a little personally and tries to get up under him and make him uncomfortable, because I think he can have some success with that. And even beyond that, whether like we haven't even mentioned Sam Lewis, another guy who you love, who shooting 44% from three right now, coming off of 15 points against Queens. Like they just have weapons along the perimeter that I think Texas really lacks. For them, it's like, are you going to get a bit good outing out of Dalen Swain? If so, like you got a good chance to win. Are you going to get a good outing out of Jordan Pope? If so, you got a good chance to win. But if those two don't show up or give you like an A to A plus performance, I just think like who else does Texas turn to? I know they still have
Yeah.
Tremont Mark, but has Tremont Mark been impressive to you? Like he's doesn't
No.
necessarily look comfortable.
Yeah, that's a good point. Tremont Mark is a guy that I want to believe in. Like I can
Hmm.
see it almost, but I just can't fully commit. And Virginia kind of has surefire guys, like guys that I'm like, okay, today ends in Y. So here comes Chance Mallory, here comes Sam Lewis, here comes Malik Thomas, and they're going to provide. Like they're just going to be consistent. So that's why I kind of want to go into prediction to where
Hmm.
like Virginia for me, I have Virginia winning this game against Texas because of I just trust the Virginia guys more than I do with Texas. And Texas defense is going to make it tough for D Ritter, like I said, but I think Virginia has enough guys to win this game to where I would say Virginia wins this. I would go 77-71 Virginia.
I like that final score prediction. I do think it will be close just because you give Texas the home court bump. And but ultimately that like even I think Pope goes off. I think Swain probably has a solid game, but I just don't know if there's enough that you can bank on. I believe that Grunlow can make Vokatitis really uncomfortable and block some shots and maybe break his streak of double figure scoring games. And ultimately, I think, in some ways, this feels like an old school Sean Miller team with the size they have and their ability to dominate the boards. But I just think Grunlow and DeRitter are a different animal when it comes to attacking the offensive glass, extending those possessions, and they just have playmakers around them who can finish the job. So I like your score prediction. I'll say it's a little bit closer. I think Virginia gets out of there with a 4-point win. They seem to be comfortable in these close games against power conference competition, but I think they can ice it down the stretch at the free throw line and get out of there with I'll say an 80 to 74 win.